Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and today I am in Marrakesh, Morocco, where Triumph has invited us for the first ride of the new Tiger 900. Now the Tiger 800, that bike has been around for a decade and has become a perennial favorite in the adventure community, but Triumph has decided that it was time for a ground-up redesign of their leading adventure bike, and that's what we're going to get a chance to ride today. Now the new Tiger 900 is available in 5 different flavors. The XR, the XC nomenclature, that is gone. Now what you're going to have, for those of you looking to ride your adventure bike primarily on the street, is going to be the Tiger base model, the GT, and the GT Pro. For those of you that want a little bit more of an off-road adventure, you can check out the Rally or the Rally Pro. And we'll get a chance to ride both of them within this review. But because so much has changed and our time is limited here, the 3 main areas that I'm going to focus on for this first ride are going to be the chassis changes, the suspension changes, and then the changes that were made to the engine itself. And I want to talk about not how those changes just are written out on paper, but how they actually reflect once we get out there on the asphalt, as well as tackle some off-road riding. Let's go see if we can get ourselves into an adventure with the new Tiger 900.
Al and I will look after you. You want to stay on these bikes for lunch? Yeah, and then at lunch we can change around and then... Yeah, brilliant.
So we've been riding all day now on the road. We've had a chance to swap bikes back and forth. I'm currently on a GT Pro. For those of you that aren't familiar, I've previously owned a 2015 Triumph Tiger XCX. I've recently come back from a trip to Austin where I was riding a 2019 XCA. I am pretty damn familiar with the outgoing model of this bike, and my initial first impressions of this bike have to do with the engine. Absolutely brilliant. I would challenge anyone out there that's currently riding a Tiger 800 or that has previously ridden a Tiger 800 to get out and test ride one of these new ones and try to disagree with me. Triumph has introduced a slew of changes, mainly this new crank, which they call T-plane crank, and where the old crank had an even firing order, this one is not. The firing order between the first and the second hit is closer, the third hit's a little bit more spaced out, and it just gives it a really unique feel, and there's so much more power in the low to mid-range area of this engine. One of the things that I really commend Triumph for is they didn't just throw displacement and more power at it. The actual top-end horsepower stays the same, but you get so much more usable power out of this motorcycle where you want to ride it. So just absolutely fantastic. Now, when we're talking about the suspension, there are big changes to the suspension depending on which model you go with. The GT Pro and the GT are going to be running a Marzocchi suspension setup, whereas the Rally and the Rally Pro are going to be running a Showa setup. But really the too long didn't read is electronic suspension on the GT Pro, very easy to use, much sportier. If you are spending, I would say, 80% of your time on the street, you want an adventure bike that's really cut out for sport touring, that might tackle some light off-road duties, you should be looking at the GT. Really a lot sportier in its feel than the suspension that's on the Rally. The Rally is much more plush, at higher speeds through the corners. It does tend to feel like it wallows a little bit more, and I'm guessing that travel is going to be a lot better when we get a chance to take that off-road. But for the on-road section, that's what you should note. Now, how the suspension affects the chassis. Whenever we're talking about adventure bikes, one of the biggest questions is, how tall is the seat height? Is it too big for me? Am I going to be able to get my feet comfortably on the ground? And I've always felt like Triumph did a really good job of making the Tiger an approachable machine for shorter riders. And I would say that even though you've seen an increase in suspension travel, you're not going to have a bike that's overly intimidating. I think the Rally is 850 millimeters for the seat height in the low position, and then for the GT Pro, I think with the seat in the low position, it's 810 millimeters, both of which can be raised up taller if you want to go taller, and then there is a low seat option that'll work for both of them as well. The changes to the suspension, even though it's longer travel suspension, better ground clearance out of the bike, the chassis still remains a very approachable machine for riders that are a bit shorter. You now have Brembo brakes in the front, much better initial grip and bite, especially for street riding. It'll be interesting to see how those fare off-road. And then for those of you considering the Rally and Rally Pro, you are now getting cross-spoke wheels. So if you're on the road, you no longer have to worry about carrying tubes, just carry a patch kit. I think for anyone really riding off-road with that bike, where you'll be airing down, you're probably still going to want to put tubes in there, at least I would, but we'll think about that more as we get to the off-road section. For right now, I'm going to keep handling these streets of Morocco, which are pretty gravelly and pothole filled. So again, perfect conditions for riding an adventure bike on road or off.
So the bikes have been super impressive. We got a chance to ride them both today, and like, dude, the new engine, absolutely fantastic. We're heading out tomorrow, and tomorrow we're just taking the Rally Pros. They're gonna put knobby tires on them, and we're doing a full day off-road. So I'm actually really excited about that. But for right now, we're gonna get cleaned up and hopefully go have a beer or two and relax a little bit before spending the whole day tomorrow off-road. Now, stop shooting, grab a wrench, and come help me with this so we can get a beer.
We're going to ride directly onto the beach. If you do drop the bike, don't worry about it. Please don't rush to pick it up, because that's when you pull muscles and stuff like that. I'll get your names as the day goes on. I'm sorry, Spurgeon, but I'm not going to forget your
You go by
name.
Spurge. Spurge is easier if you forget the Spurgeon. Son of a... Oh my God! I used to hate this bike on the sand, the old one. This is completely different. Suspension so far has been super impressive. I was really not expecting it to work for a rider of my size. This is amazing. Man, I'm trying to think of all the things that I want to talk about, and I mean, this is literally my initial reaction of this bike off-road in sand, loose gravel, rocks. I mean, if you've ridden the old Tiger in sand, it wasn't the most balanced. This feels so much more balanced. So here we are in Morocco. This morning we went right to the beach and got to ride these bikes on the beach in some sand. Now we are cruising around. Oh my God, it's a goat tree. Oh my God, it's a goat tree. I didn't think it was real. Holy shit. That just made the entire trip. Oh my God, that was so cool. I totally lost track of what we were doing. We're supposed to be shooting an off-road video. I should just restart. So we are out here riding in Morocco. I got Steve Cameron with me, and we are just having fun on adventure bikes. I don't even know where to start with this bike off-road. We've got a chance to ride on the beach. We've been riding loose gravel, sand, dirt. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I mean, this bike, it's so much better off-road. The chassis feels so much lighter and more balanced. The engine is lower in the frame and it sits forward in the frame more than the previous version. And it just is nimble compared to the old bike. All this stuff that we're handling right now would have been so much harder to do on the previous bike. Also, the subframe is now aluminum and it's removable, as are the passenger pegs. So if you're one of those Tiger 800 riders that has ever had to replace a frame because you bent a passenger peg, you can now just pull those off completely, or if you do end up damaging it, you can actually just replace the rear subframe. So it's great that Triumph has actually been listening to what their customers have been asking for. Now the suspension on this one, remember, is that Showa suspension, about 9.4 inches of travel up front, about 9 inches of travel out back. I was completely skeptical. You know, I was asking them at the press launch about whether or not there were different spring rates available. And they're like, no, we feel like we have a setting that one spring rate is going to work for all kinds of riders. And I had my doubts. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm about 230 right now with my gear on, and I haven't bottomed out once. Steve and I have taken some pretty decent jumps and bumps with this thing, and it's handled it really well. Really well. Now they did tune the suspensions for us. So what I will say is that I'm going to try and get the settings from the guys at Triumph so I can put that in the article. In this loose stuff, there's so much more traction. We're both riding in Off-Road Pro mode, which is only available on the Rally Pro, which means that all traction control is turned off. However, the rear wheel spin, it catches and hooks up so much better than the previous version. The old Tiger 800 would just spin, and this definitely hooks up a lot better. I think a lot of that has to do with that T-plane crank that they were talking about, and I really didn't believe them. I thought it was just marketing speak, but man, in this loose stuff, you get so much more traction out of the bike. Also, it stalls less. I don't know if that's a shifter, the slipper assist clutch or what, but it's definitely stalling less for both of us. We're gonna go, we're gonna keep riding, we're gonna have some fun out here, but we'll check in with you before the end of the day.
So my time here in Morocco is coming to an end, and honestly, this has been one of the best trips that I've ever done on an adventure bike. Between the people, the riding, the motorcycle, it's been absolutely a blast. For anyone out there that has an opportunity to ride in Morocco, regardless of the motorcycle, I would definitely recommend it. Now, speaking of the bike, I have looked at this bike review through a very fine lens because I'm a previous Tiger 800 XCX owner. I wanted to know how this bike was different and whether or not it was living up to all the hype that Triumph is throwing at it. And honestly, it's exceeded my expectations. With both the GT Pro as well as the Rally Pro, these are completely different bikes. The engine is absolutely fantastic. More power throughout the entire mid-range, lower down in. You can really get more torque out of this. Then when you get up into the suspension, I mean, the suspension is fully adjustable in a way that the WP never was. And then when you're looking at the GT Pro, the electronically adjustable rear shock, the adjustment to the front fork, I mean, huge upgrades over that previous version. And then the chassis, I mean, completely redesigned, and they really listened to what riders were asking for. That rear subframe is removable. The passenger pegs are removable. The engine is lower in the frame, so it feels more balanced, but they improve ground clearance. Everything about this bike is exactly what they say it is. It's a ground up redesign where they really listened to the riders that were riding the bike and gave them more of what they wanted. If I had to find some nitpicks here, I would say some of the welds look big and bulky. They look a little sloppy. I've become really used to Triumph's fit and finish over the past couple of years, and that's something that I do think will catch certain people's eyes. The one thing that I would want to see beefed up for around that $16,700 price point is just some of the crash protection. I would love aluminum backed handguards. The skid plate looks a little bit flimsy. As far as the crash bars, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to crash it yet. Maybe I need a long-term loaner to put a little more time on. The only other thing I'd want to change, Rally foot pegs. I want a wider, longer, sharper foot peg. I was sliding off the pegs a little bit more, but again, I think Triumph is giving you fantastic upgrades, and I've just begun to scratch the surface of this. The GT Pro, $16,200. Rally Pro, $16,700. The base model starts at $12,500, and you work your way up from there. But again, I will get into all of that in the actual written article. So if you're like me and you want all the nitty-gritty details, make sure you head over to Common Tread, read my first ride review of the Tiger GT Pro as well as the Rally Pro. And if you have any questions, any concerns, throw them in the comments of the video, throw them in the article comments below. I will do my best to respond to you. Thank you so much for joining me here today in Morocco for the first ride review of the new Tiger 900s. I'm Spurge. Enjoy the ride. Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and today I'm coming to you from Marrakesh in Morocco. Triumph has brought us over to ride the new Tiger 900s. This is what riding adventure bikes is all about, is having new experiences.
Doesn't matter if we got it or not.
What happened? Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and today I'm riding a camel. Oh, here we go. There's Steve Cameron. You've seen him from other Tiger adventures, and back there, that's Chase. He's producing this show out here in the desert.
Hello.
Hey.
Are you okay?
Oh yeah.
Good?
Yeah.
Happy?
Very happy. It's not like riding a motorcycle. I'm used to riding a motorcycle. It's a little bit different.